Mom comes home one day and she says, "Hey, we need to talk about a couple of things regarding finance." She still has a corporate job, but she's helping me to be a business coach for me, essentially, and a life coach because she has way more business experience than I do.
Welcome, everyone, to our Hero Capital Show. I'm your host, Tim Mai, and today we have a super special guest on the line with us. One of our community members, probably the youngest one I've gotten the chance to interview since starting this show, Mr. Michael Rebelo. Michael is only 20 years old and have been, or currently is a co-general partner in over 200 plus apartment units across the country. And he is the president of Everford Capital Partners. He, inspired by his goal to retire his mom, he's very passionate about raising capital and helping middle Americans learn about investing in multifamily syndications and build lasting financial freedom. And just in the last short 2 years or so that he's been doing this, he's already got, like I mentioned, over 200 units of multifamily, which is over $15 million worth of multifamily deals, personally raised over $1 million. And so super excited to have you on our show today, Michael. Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, Tim, it's a pleasure. And I love these calls and I love these communities. It's great. So great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no, great to have you here. Share with us how did you got into this world of real estate, and especially how you decided to forego the traditional college route and get started in real estate.
Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, real estate was never something I actually wanted to pursue. It was almost like this random calling, I guess. When I was 16 at the time, I dived into the business world in high school by learning business and personal finance, marketing, entrepreneurship, because it just sounded interesting to me, just the ownership aspect of it. I was like, okay, there must be something to this because I know there's people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos out there, all these corporate guys out there that just basically, like, for example, Jeff, he did it right out of his garage with Amazon, and then poof, look where Amazon is today. So I'm like, there has to be something to this gig. So I started to learn about that. I started to learn about Wall Street, the stock market, how it works, how it ticks, how I can follow it. And I wanted to get into the S&P 500. I heard there was a lot of good things behind it. So I started doing my research. Mom comes home one day and she says, "Hey, we need to talk about a couple of things regarding finance." So I'm like, okay, I'm the probably young finance expert, quote unquote, because I'm learning about business and finance. So it's like, all right, sure, let's have a conversation. She was telling me how bank accounts like CDs, 401ks, IRAs, how they all work, especially with compound interest. I didn't understand at the time because I was like, how does this apply to me? Just put your money away and it's safe and it works in the background for you. She was telling me that we were supposed to be making 5% on the CD, but yet we were making like 1.25 or somewhere around that ballpark. So it was a reality slap across the face for us to go, okay, we need to figure out a different route than this, because our goal was to put money away so that money can make money for us, because we're already trying to work to get money anyway. And nowadays it's getting harder to do. So we sat down, we played around on Facebook, on Google, and to see where could we put our money. We got a lot of ads that came through with multifamily and other investments because the cookies listen. And we were like, all right, let's see what this is. A lot of accredited 506c stuff that we couldn't get into because we're Main Street America, we're Middle America. I'm not accredited, not yet at least. And it's okay, so what do we do now? Back to the drawing board. We looked at oil, gold, silver, fix and flip, a little bit of multifamily. Multifamily, we thought that was like for the corporate America people, where they're the ones like BlackRock. They just keep buying them out like chess pieces. Like we couldn't tap into that. And then we were seeing ads coming across our feed about syndications. I don't know, but syndications has a negative connotation. Like a syndicate, I'm like, maybe I've been watching The Godfather too much. I'm not sure. But I was like, wait a minute, hold on. But we started to realize that they're not owned, these apartment complexes, whether it's commercial or residential, they're not owned by one specific entity or one specific person or company. It's actually owned by multiple people. Like the syndication structure, you bring a group of investors together, you get a bank loan, you formulate a team, create a business plan out of it, 3 to 5 year hold, get cash flow, equity, you run it like a business. And then after that, it's almost like buying a new car. When you buy that one specific car, you start to see them all. It's like, I thought this was new. Like, how come everyone else has it? And then when we would drive around, we would see all these multifamily apartment complexes. And I'm like, wow, they're like right under our nose. This is insane. And we just dived right in. We did a lot of self-teaching. We did go with a coaching program to at least learn the ropes. It was a lot to take in. I know the expression, Was it drinking water through a fire hose? But it was more like, what are we doing? Like, we had no idea, but we knew there was so much untapped potential when it came to this industry. Sure, it's very niche and could be very small because you run into people, oh wait, that person, wow. In a larger industry like Wall Street, there's millions upon millions of people that are in Wall Street, whether they're employees or just active investors, it doesn't matter. But this is a very niche community. Okay, so let's just dive head first. Why not? So throughout high school, I was learning this. Mom was learning this as well. She still has a corporate job, but she's helping me to be a business coach for me, essentially, and a life coach because she has way more business experience than I do. So I told her, Mom, at the time, I'm 18. Like, I don't know much about business at all. Like, the only thing I know about is dating, cars, and could I cheat on my English exam? That's it. I'm like, I don't know really much of that. And she's like, this is how we would run a business from my standpoint if I was the head of your company or if I was starting a business ground up. So I was leveraging her experience, and that's where it comes into play later. Throughout these networks and these networking events and these Facebook groups, I would leverage their knowledge because there are people in here that have been real estate for 30 plus years, whether it's mortgage lending, whether it's active or passive investing, fix and flips. And I was like, I probably don't have to know it all, but I need to know the people that do. And I realized that, sure, I'm going to have weaknesses. Like, for example, underwriting is my weakness. Underwriting me are like oil and water. But I realized that some people have that as their main strength. So I was going, I wonder if I could find people that have my weaknesses as their strengths. And that's how we're able to just compound our networking. It's just start to link up with other people, be a conduit, do Hunter Thompson's method, refer other people. Hey, you need to go connect with this person. Reciprocate, law of reciprocity. Ziglar said you can get anything you want in life as long as you help other people get what they want. And it was all these compounding lessons that led us to our first deal. And it was funny. I'm the visionary. Mom's the pragmatic person behind the scenes. She's the one that looks at a spreadsheet and finds this one minute detail and goes, what is that? And I go, how did you spot that within like the hundreds of numbers on the spreadsheet? So I'm going through my inbox of my email because now we're on deal crunch time, from graduating high school to moving from Massachusetts all the way to Tucson last year. And we're like, that's it. We have to get this business up and running because we've been learning, we've been writing all this stuff down, but now we actually have to implement it. We have to take action because then we would fizzle out and become the flashes in the pan. We don't want that. So I'm going through my inbox and I'm like, hey, what do you think about this deal in Indiana? No. Okay. What do you think about this deal in Orlando? No. What do you think about this deal in Houston? It's 200 units. You know, the cash flow? No. I'm like, okay, why are you telling me no? She's like, I want to be located here in Tucson for multifamily. We moved out here specifically for real estate investing and for personal reasons because we love it out here. Tucson is our main market. I'll even stretch it to Phoenix, and we want to stay in those markets. I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm like, all right, can't say no to Mom, and she's my business partner, so it's like a double whammy. But I come across this one deal, particularly in Tyler, Texas, from a team we know very well, and I was reading it, and I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, before you say no, and I'm going to say no because I know it's not in Tucson. I'm like, it's in Tyler, Texas. And she goes, what is Tyler, Texas? I'm like, it's 90 miles east of Dallas, Fort Worth. Just let me explain the numbers to you. She's like, no. And then I just hit her with this bombshell, and I say this, 3.82% assumed fixed rate for the entire hold period for 6 years. And she was like, okay, now you have my attention. What is this deal about? And we realized very quickly, now we helped them raise and we joined them on the co-GP side to help them with the asset management and also the raising side. And we're learning so much from them. In fact, I'll plug them in. Sponsors are Michelle Jong and Cindy Harding with High Caliber Multifamily and Fire Capital. They're excellent people. Mom and I have known Cindy and her crew for since we started this industry. Wealth of knowledge. But anyway, what I figured out quickly is that sometimes these deals that you're going to undertake are not going to come from property management, insurance brokers, or even just brokers in general. Sometimes they're going to come from your own network. And that's what I started to see evolving, is that once you expand your network enough and once you leverage the right relationships, you're going to start having opportunities coming to you. In fact, we just signed an operating agreement on 64 units in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that again came from our network. We didn't source it. It just came from our network of people that we know, people that we're friends with. And that's how we got into the real estate industry. It's just leveraging our network, figuring out that the system doesn't work for us anymore, and that multifamily real estate needs to be a more common option for Main Street Americans or those that just want more for their financial life. And that's how mom and I got into the industry.
That's good. I love it. We're gonna dial it back a bit and then we're gonna go further into your deals as well. But so you got interested in entrepreneurship since you were 16. Did you get into any kind of side hustle at all outside of real estate?
It was strictly manual labor. And how I figured it out was I am an expert at cutting grass. I don't know why, but I am. And what's funny is that now we're out here in Tucson, grass really doesn't exist. But back in Massachusetts, mom was so busy. My grandfather, he was aging. My grandmother couldn't do it. So I was like, okay, I have to do this. And I loved it. I have a green thumb, and I was like, I can do this. And I was just getting so good at it, I was thinking, I could capitalize on this. I can make this into a business. So I'm thinking, what could I do? And then I think it was like 2 or 3 summers ago, a massive heat wave hit. We were in the hundreds for Massachusetts, which is very rare. And a lot of people weren't cutting their grass. The grass was still healthy, but I'm like, I could survive the heat. I am probably one of the youngest people in the neighborhood because it was a lot of people in their 50s or 60s or 70s that I was like, I could provide a service. I could fill in that gap for that demand because the lawns were being unkept. The grass was getting long. I'm like, I got to do something about this, and I could make cash out of it. So we went on this app called Nextdoor. We tried to figure out how I could accelerate my little landscaping business, and it took off. I got clients in the local neighborhood in the state as well, 30 to 40 minutes out of where I used to live. I was like, this is perfect. We mow lawns every week, sometimes even cords of wood, just making extra cash. I'm going, oh, this is great. I'm solo, but this is great. But rewind 2 years ago, I wanted to go into the automobile industry. I am a gearhead at heart. And you point to a car, I could probably tell you where it's manufactured and how much horsepower it has and everything else. So I figured I could probably turn my passion into a job, which I later figured out was probably a bad thing to do. And we would travel across the country from Georgia to Boston to Miami to Fort Lauderdale. I would look for these exotic cars, these classic cars, and I would take pictures of them, and I was eventually going to sell them as artwork, and eventually create a YouTube channel to create content talking about these cars and potentially getting some income from it. But I realized that I didn't have the tools necessary. I didn't have the bandwidth necessary. And I realized there was so much work that went into it that I have to teach myself for an entire year in order to get this off the ground. So I was like, not going to work. But for me, as an individual, I think most of the entrepreneurship came from my family history. We're all entrepreneurs. I'm second generation Azorian. My first generation is mom, and then my grandparents are from the Azores. They're entrepreneurs. They came to Canada and the United States with pretty much nothing, but they built up a legacy. They built up a family from that. And I think I inherited the entrepreneurial genes for sure. And it was like, if they can do it, I can do it. To build something up for my family, maybe something outside of the traditional route of getting the job, because for some reason it just didn't seem attractive to me. I would see my mom, she would come home and she was just exhausted. The bags under her eyes, she was just exhausted, eating cold food because it was so late at night. I'm like, this doesn't seem appealing. I'm like, there has to be something other than working for the corporate fist of America. I'm like, there has to be a different route. And it just fueled the entrepreneurial spirit. So yeah, that's how I got into entrepreneurship even before real estate. And at least that's my drive and passion as an entrepreneur.
That's good. I love that.
You tried wholesaling. You
Oh
forgot
yeah,
that.
I tried wholesaling. Yeah, that was interesting. But that's what I'm talking about is everything before that, or before real estate. But wholesaling was interesting. We could dive into that later, but that was a how to get rich quick and try to get as much capital into the bank as I can to put it into an LP deal for multifamily. So that was like a little side gig of my own outside of multifamily.
That's good. I love that. All right, let's talk a bit about your personality because you're young, you're super sociable, easy to talk to, easy to connect with. Yeah, versus I have 2 boys and they're about your age. One is 18, the other one is 21. And they're much more shy. Yeah, they prefer to do things that they don't have to talk to anybody. So share with me a bit about, has you always naturally this is how you are, you just love to meet people and things like that, or did you grow into that personality?
That is a great question. For me, so a little bit about my histories. I'm a Catholic, Portuguese Catholic, and my entire talking personality and just going on stages or virtual events all started with a pant leg. Now, I know it sounds strange, but let me dive into that for a second. My mother, she would read at church. She would read the readings out of the book and everything. She would go up to the ambo. She would do this for years. And eventually, when I got to the age, like around 5 or 6, I would just hold on to her pant leg going up there because it was like, all right, I'm going to get the full experience. Everyone loved it. But little did I realize that was actually building my speaking quote unquote career. And then eventually when I got older, I was starting to do the readings at Mass as well. And I just took off with it. And little did I know that was untapped potential that I didn't even know I had. Now going to school, I was a little bit of a wallflower, but with the right people, oh man, I could just go off. It was great. I just was able to soar. But just in general, I was just happy just sitting there and just in my own world, just mindless. But I think it was acknowledging the fact that I can have this potential to have a voice, to speak my mission, to speak my purpose. And I realized that networking is a big thing. And I realized that mom was very much the same way. She was also a wallflower, but she grew into that as well. And I'm like, maybe I can do the same. So just looking at different, how to present yourself, learning from mom, learning from my family of how to do that, how to carry yourself well, how to say the right things correctly, tone, posture, sign language. Brian Tracy talks about this all the time. Your body speaks more than the actual words coming out of your mouth. And I learned that very quickly. And it was almost like an art that I had to master. Some of us, it comes naturally. I think it came naturally for me, but for others that may be unnatural for them, it's definitely an art that I would suggest you should learn, because it helps with your speaking abilities, it helps with your confidence, helps you enables you to network better and to raise capital. In fact, if you can be a personal human being and not only that, a good listener, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, you will be able to raise millions just from listening and to say the right things, touching upon the pain points being the solution, able to talk to people like that. And Tim, I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes talking to my generation just makes me sick, because I'm like, oh my God. It just drives me nuts. But talking to people that are older than me, that are quote unquote sophisticated, that have a lot more experience, I can jive with those people because we're having intelligent conversations. I could talk to them. I could talk to crowds of similar minded people. It's almost like for my generation and for those trying to get into the industry, or even like for your sons, they're eventually going to find their clique, their own little niche to get into, and they're going to thrive. I know for me, when I got into real estate and when I figured out what I could talk about, how I can present myself, how I could be a conduit of opportunities, I took off. So it's going to be at the right moment at the right time. Maybe not now, but eventually there's going to be like a turning point where it's going to be like that click that, oh wait, I can do that. So I think that's how my charisma and my speaking abilities and how I'm able to carry myself came from. So that's a little bit of the origin story.
That's good. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more here, because a lot of adults, I'm sure there's a number of people on this call, when they're coming into this industry, even as adults, they feel like, oh, I don't know enough. I don't know what to say. Like all of these things that they might be telling themselves, which then hold them back from being able to go talk to people and network and talk to investors and all of that. What was it that helped you to begin to feel confident enough to carry a conversation about multifamily, about passive investing and such?
Oh, I love that question. You're asking too many good questions. I absolutely love them. When I was able to talk about multifamily confidently, but let me go back to the point where I was unconfident about multifamily. Just starting out, there's so much to take in, there's so much to learn. Especially for me, it was very discouraging. Like I was talking to brokers that have been in the industry for 40 years, or this is their passion, this is their shtick pretty much. And calling them, and I know I get the vibe from some people, you're wet behind the ears still, kid. You just came out of high school. What do you know? But I would say for me confidently, now to go to the confident side, in the beginning I was like, oh yeah, I'm a multifamily real estate syndicator where we look for this, we look for that. It sounded so AI generated. It sounded like ChatGPT was in the background doing it for me. It was ridiculous. It was so unnatural. But there was a point where I was starting to learn so much just from my network and my own personal learning experience that I was like, okay, I could actually simplify this to the point where I'm having a conversation. If someone asks me what I do, I'm like, I buy apartment complexes. And they go, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, what do you do? Actually, those apartment complexes that you see on the freeway, yeah, I buy those. And a lot of people don't know this, but they're not owned by one individual specifically. They're owned by a group of people like you, me, your neighbors, your family, your friends. Where you pitch in money, we create a business plan out of it, we build a team around it, and then we purchase the property. We hold it for a semi-period of time, and then eventually we exit. We make money through the cash flow, through the rent, so you can get a piece of that rent. And nobody really tells you how to do it. That's how I do it. And a lot of people went, oh, I didn't realize you could do that. And it took me a while. Behold the elevator pitch. That's the best way I can describe it. That was the birth of my elevator pitch, where when you learn so much and when you start talking to people in the industry and listening to them, how they're talking about it, Like now, if they're using like metrics from, I don't know, metrics from Adam, I'm like, I'm not sure if I can jive with that. I'm not sure if I could confidently convey that. But if I'm talking about how cash flow works, how we audit rent rolls, how we do this, how we underwrite, and if I can explain it to the point where I have a friend who's, 16, and if they can understand it, that means people coming into the industry can. So it's almost like the teacher learns more than the student kind of scenario. So if you want to be confident in talking to multifamily or even just talking about it in general, you have to learn it. You have to learn the lingo. And you also have to listen. 2 years kind of reference again. You have to listen to the operators and how they talk. Are they talking really big numbers, big metrics? Are they talking big words? Or are they just like simplifying it so that you can understand it? My target investor is my mom. She's in Main Street America. A lot of people don't know what internal rate of return is or how it works. I'm still yet to figure that out. How ARR works, how cash flow works, what is an equity multiple? What happens if I put $50,000 of my hard-earned cash with you? What happens to that money? I have to be confident enough and clear enough to explain that. How does that work for my investor? How does that work for other general partners, LPs? How does it work in deals? What's the system? When you start to speak confidently, confidence comes from knowing, and knowing comes from knowledge. And knowledge also helps to remove that fear. So if you don't have fear, the only thing you have is confidence. So if you can confidently convey what you have and what you're doing as an entrepreneur, and basically teaching new people in the industry or teaching people that want to put their money to work, maybe not in Wall Street, but in something else, they can go, so that makes sense. So I think confidence is derived from knowledge, and not only that, listening to other people doing it as well. Right. I think that's the root of it. And then just talking about it over and over again. You're going to slip and fall, but that's the point. We fall because we need to learn how to walk. And we're going to fall, but every time we do, it's a learning curve.
That's so good. That's so good. And what you just added in there at the end, you just got to learn to do it over and over again, talk about it over and over again, because that's going to build your confidence. It builds your knowledge. The more you talk about it, the more you understand it at a deeper level. Oh, okay. So that's how it works. And yeah, I love that. Everything you're saying is just so spot on. So let's talk about, you mentioned your mom as your avatar, middle American, Main Street, right? What exactly does that mean? So when you say, hey, my mom is my avatar, like who exactly are you going after? How do you define that avatar?
I would say my avatar is basically everyone that's fueling Wall Street. So your baker, your butcher, your candlestick maker, everyone that's keeping the United States running, like your small businesses, your families, your blue collar workers. And I say that because they are the general populace of the United States. Sure, is it better to look at accredited investors because they know more about investing and they also know how to manage money? Absolutely. But my point being is my mom, she didn't even know about this. And the quote unquote traditional playbook of the get a job, go to college, get that nice degree that may or may not get you a job, and then have a 401k that may or may not retire you. That same playbook. Yes, are there 401ks that work? Yes, people have been successful on 401ks? 100%. I personally don't think that works anymore, along with the education system, which I won't go down that rabbit hole. But what my avatar is people like my mom. She didn't know what syndications was. She knew what Wall Street was, what the 401ks are, the IRAs, and that's the safe route. Because after 2008, a lot of people got burned and a lot of people have scars from that, and they're like, they want to have their money in the safest route possible. And people don't realize is that 2008 and Wall Street are tied together. 401ks and IRAs are tied to Wall Street. So it's education. It comes from education. And the reason why I say middle America is because it's the best way I can give back to those that helped me. A lot of my friends are in middle America. My mom's in middle America. My family's middle American. So it's like I have to at least do something. So it's almost like a calling pretty much. But to summarize, hardworking, stiff middle American that does the 9 to 5 is trying to put their kids through college, give them a better life than what they have. They're playing the same traditional playbook that a lot of people before them have been playing. And now they're starting to realize maybe this isn't for me. Like maybe I need to put my money elsewhere so I can get my kids through college, so that I can go on that vacation one more time next year. And what's their why? Maybe they want to spend more time with their kids. Maybe they want to spend more time with their family. Maybe they want to spend time for themselves because they're working so much, maybe even taking up a part-time job as well. So now they're working 1.5 jobs and they don't have time for themselves or their family. So I want to be the source of opportunity where I can provide that solution for you. And maybe you don't want to invest in multifamily, but you know what? I'm happy walking away that now it exists. So when you're ready, you come back to either me or the operators I know, and we can make your goals come true. So That's my avatar. That's how I look at it from an investor standpoint. And that's a little bit about my investor avatar.
I love that. Yeah, I really love that. And I love the way that you think about it from the perspective of, hey, there's a lot of people out here who don't know about real estate investing, about IRR, about all of these things that we now know. For the longest time, I didn't know that when we go out here and we see a hotel or we see an office building or an apartment complex, that it's not owned by one person, it's owned by a bunch of, little
Exactly.
people, right? Like for the longest time, I didn't know that. And yeah, and now like I raise money from all kinds of people, and I'm often surprised. Like it doesn't matter sometimes even, how wealthy they are, that some of these basics about investing they don't know, especially like they're really good at whatever they do, whether if it's business, whatever niche that is, they know that business really well, but outside of that business they don't really know much about, especially real estate investing. Stock investing is easy because all the financial advisors and stockbrokers hit them up, but when it comes to alternative assets, like what we do here with real estate, you'd be surprised. Very few people know. I've been in real estate now 23 years. I feel like everyone should know real estate, but no, that's not true at all. Yeah, you're really spot on about identifying, hey, there's a lot of them don't know about real estate investing. If I can teach them and teach them in such a way that they would understand, not some bunch of fancy words and lingos and all of that, but speaks in such a way that they understand, it will get them interested in learning more and possibly investing with me. And so I love the way you think about that. That's really, really good. So let's talk about your first deal, this deal in Tyler, and you raised for it. I'm curious as to like how much did you raise for that deal, and who did you raise from? Who invests, like the type of people and where you met them that invested in that deal with you?
That was a great question. So Mom and I collectively raised over $750,000, and then add on the soft commits, we were over $1 million for this deal in particular. Some investors for personal reasons did fall out, but you know what? We were able to get to that goal of raising $1 million. It was a daunting task. Don't get me wrong. I had a trash can next to me called the vomit bucket because I'm like, oh my God. I'm just losing my mind over here. But the story with that is we were, I forget what it is, like the unconscious competent or the competent unconscious. I'm not sure which one it is. But we accidentally got into capital raising, and we both sat on that call about joining the team in particular. And then I look at Mom and I go, how do we raise capital? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know either. So it was like, all right, let's get out our tools. Let's fire up the grindstone. Let's see if we can make this thing as sharp as possible for this deal. So what happened is we took this deal from this small and we just blew it up. Like Tony Stark, we just blew it up into a hologram. We're like, how does every facet of this work? And then I leveraged my mom's experience to go, Mom, I want you to pretend that you know nothing about this deal, that you know nothing about multifamily. Embody a middle American. And what do you understand about this deal and what do you not understand? A lot of the deals she didn't understand. I would say about 70% she didn't understand. 30% she did. And it was a little bit of bias from the fact that she was learning multifamily with me. So I was like, okay, let's break this down so that you can understand it. Because if you can understand it from a pragmatic and burnt out perspective, almost every other American can. So we broke it down page by page of the 42-page pitch deck. We looked at the underwriting. What does this mean? And we made one pages for each particular section. Whether it's the underwriting, how's the asset management work? How does your money work? What's a Class A, Class B investment? And then we did what we were told and what we've learned. Go to your friends and family. All knows except for one. One of our neighbors, they said, yes, we would love to do this, but they also know about real estate. So they had a little bias entry, but it was very much of the realtor side. So we were like, okay, we got one. Now what? What do we do after that? So Mom and I had to come down to a plan of how can we do this as quickly as possible within the SEC regulation? And how can we make sure that we're not asking people for money, but we're teaching them and having the opportunity for them to invest with us at the same time? So I would say this had to be either May or February. I forget because all the events are blending in. I was invited to a panel in Scottsdale to speak. And I was talking about multifamily, my experience as well, that I work with my mom and a guy in particular who's also in the real estate industry, except he's in the single family housing industry. He was like, you do what now? And he was talking with mom because I was busy networking, and then mom was filling him in on, this is what we do. We would love to teach you. There's a keyword is teach. And what we did was we met with him at a diner. Funny part is he's a pilot. So he's, oh yeah, I'll be flying down near South Tucson. I'm like, well, excuse me, I have to drive. So we met him at the airfield at the diner right off the airstrip. And we had a 15-page pamphlet of how multifamily syndications work. It was as simple as could be. There was no images. We just whipped it up on a Word document, printed it up, and said, boom, done. I'm like, this is golden. We both looked at each other and went, perfect. We have a course right here. Little to our known fact, that actually got the investor in, because now he understood the entire facet and every little minute detail of how multifamily real estate syndications work, or just investments in general regarding real estate. And we both looked at each other and went, maybe that's how we're going to do it. Fast forward, I attended an event called Peak Partnership. In fact, at that particular event, I spoke on the 29 and under panel. And I was telling people that I knew personally, I was like, hey, I'm working on this deal. And a lot of people were like, you're working on which deal? And I was telling them about what is the one thing that's going to grab their attention? What's the one thing that grabbed my mom's attention? That 3.2% assumed fixed rate. That's very rare, especially in that time, all the way at the beginning of 2025. End of 2024. Interest rates and Jerome Powell were the topic of the century. It was like, all right, you can't beat this kind of a rate. We haven't seen rates like this in years, just looking at historical records. And a lot of people are like, you got to show me this deal. You got to show me this. And what we realized that people were investing because we were helping them to learn about how we're doing multifamily, and then they can learn from us. So now they know us, now they know the business, and now they know how their money's going to work, and now they know the opportunity. So it was like these four main things. And of course, like number 5, what grabs their attention? What makes the deal enticing? Like, for example, oh yeah, we have great returns. I don't care. What makes it enticing for me? I want to know that because I'm basically middle America's representative. They really don't care about the returns or who you are right now. What they want to know is, what is enticing about this deal? What is popping off the page that makes sense? Like 3.2% fixed rate? That doesn't change? Nope. Oh my God, tell me more. You need to find these details in these deals where you could break it down and say, that's enticing, or this particular return is enticing. This story is enticing. What is the deal about? What makes it appealing? So that's really what it came down to, was the 4 factors: the education about us, and then the education about what we're doing, and then basically teaching them how the opportunity is going to work and how their money is going to be factored in and how they're going to make money with us. Because my goal is to make sure you keep your money, that your money makes money for you. So it's really those 4 things that helped us raise that committed capital and soft committed capital to fulfill our goal of the first deal.
That's excellent. I love it. So were all the investors within the communities where you went to attend events and network, did they all come from that community, or were there any that came from friends and family outside of that community as well?
Great question. So I would say it was 50-50. Where it was people that we knew and it was people that other people knew. Like, for example, just these small little networking events that we would attend either in Tucson or in Phoenix, other real estate communities. It was like almost like a blend where we had people that we knew in the real estate industry, but that weren't a part of any communities, but they were just doing it there on their own. We had our neighbor invest. That was personal. That was a friendship.
Nice.
We had friends that were also in the real estate community, so they were a part of other communities. So it was very much a blend. And I know that sometimes when you go into real estate communities, you're fishing in a very small cup because everyone wants to raise capital. I get it. But if you break apart the real estate industry, money is flowing all the time. Money never sits still. If money sits still, that means there's a crash going on. And I don't see a crash happening right now because a lot of money is still flowing. It's flowing constantly right now. And I realize that, what operators need to understand, like Tim, for example, I forget who said on this call, he was like, I'm seeing your emails all the time. You're very enthusiastic about these emails. That's attraction. You are bringing people to your call through your enthusiasm and your style. People will gravitate to the style they like the most, and especially if they know you from being top of mind. So it was like, what an interesting strategy. So if you could be at top of mind and start to cultivate friends and relationships inside and outside the community, you're going to get a blend. But you also have to understand that, sure, sometimes you're fishing in a small cup, but sometimes you have to make the cup bigger. So that's what we were doing in the other communities, and then just teaching other people about it that are outside the community, that may be a realtor or just middle America. So yeah, it was very much an interesting blend of 50-50, where it was people in the communities that know about it and then people outside of the communities that either do a smaller piece of real estate or are doing something entrepreneurial or just want to put their money to work.
That's excellent. Thank you for that. All right, Michael, before we open up for Q&A here, for those that want to reach out to you, learn from you, maybe, partner with you, invest with you, where would you like to send them?
That is a great question. So feel free to check out our website at www.everforwardcapitalpartners.com. I'll actually see if I can drop my contact information in the chat really quick. I'll drop that in a second because I'm not that literate with technology. Or you can send me a text at 774-264-3392. I'm available on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well.
Slow down on that number. Read it
Let me
again.
send in the chat. So you can give me a text or a call at 774-264-3392. So you'll be able to reach out to me, connect with me, ask me questions. I'm happy to connect and see how I can put your money to work and make sure you make money or your money makes money for you.
Excellent, Michael. Really appreciate you.